All right, let's dive right in. If you're a filmmaker who's serious about leveling up your career with an international co-production, then you are in exactly the right place. Eurimages. It's one of the most prestigious support systems in the world. But let's be honest, figuring out all the rules and regulations can feel incredibly complicated. So think of this as your strategic guide, your personal playbook for mastering the entire process, from the first application all the way through to repayment. So here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll look at the big picture. What is the Eurimages opportunity, really? Then, we're going to tackle the essential hurdles one by one. We'll talk about passing that first eligibility test, then crafting an application that actually gets noticed. From there, we'll decode the support agreement, the fine print, and finally, we'll get into the super important details of recoupment and repayment. By the end of this, you're going to have a crystal clear path forward. So, what is Eurimages anyway? Look, it's not just another film fund, right? It's the Cultural Support Fund of the Council of Europe, and it's been around since 1989. And understanding its core mission, well, that's the very first step to making sure your project is perfectly aligned for success. Now, did you catch that key word? Cooperation. This is really the heart and soul of what they're all about. They aren't just cutting checks for films. They're actively building a whole network of creative and technical partnerships that cross borders. They care just as much about how a film gets made as what it's about. It's all in service of a uniquely European cinema. And yeah, they've got some serious cash to back this up. We're talking about an annual budget of around 30 million euros. That money comes from member states and from the returns on previous loans. The scale of this opportunity is just immense. This is a serious fund, and they're looking for serious projects. Okay, now let's get into the first major hurdle, eligibility. Think of these as the absolute non-negotiable ground rules. Before Eurimages even starts thinking about the creative side of your project, you have to get past these checks. So let's walk through this carefully. We can really break this down into three main pillars. First, there's you, the producer. You have to qualify as independent. Simple as that. Second, your project. Doesn't matter if it's fiction, animation, or documentary, it has to meet their basic criteria, like being at least 70 minutes long. And third, and listen up, because this is a big one, your co-production's financial structure has to fit their model perfectly. And that brings us to our very first critical step, the financial setup of your co-production. It's not just a small detail, it's a fundamental requirement. Seriously, if you get this wrong, it's game over before you even start. Okay, so this table lays it all out for you, plain and simple. If you're doing a multilateral co-production, the main producer can't put in more than 70% of the cash, and every minority partner has to bring at least 10% to the table. For a standard bilateral deal, it's a strict 80-20 split. I mean it. Take a look at your financing plan right now. Does it fit these numbers? And it's not just about money. Eurimages uses a point system to measure the creative and technical collaboration. For a fiction film, for example, you have to score at least 16 out of 21 points. And those points come from things like the nationality of your director, your writer, your actors, and even where you do post-production. This is their way of making sure you're not just moving money around, They want a real creative partnership. All right, so you're eligible. Great. But now the real work starts. This next phase is all about going from can I apply to how do I win? It's about showing that your project isn't just eligible, it's exceptional. And here we are at our second critical step. And trust me, this is a big one. Confirmed financing. The moment you hit submit on that application, you have to prove that your project is already on solid financial ground. They need to see that your project is already a real thing, not just a dream on paper. Let's really break this down. You need at least 50% of the money confirmed in each partner country. And confirmed means you've got contracts or at least formal letters of intent. Now, pay very close attention to this last point. You can count things like your own deferred fees as part of that 50%, but all of those deferrals and in-kind contributions combined can't be more than 15% of the total budget. Seriously, this specific cap is a detail that trips up so many producers. You might want to bookmark this part. Okay. Let's jump ahead. You did it. Your project got selected. Congratulations. But listen, getting that offer letter, that's not the finish line. Not even close. Now you've got to enter a legally binding agreement. And the requirements here are just as tough as they were for the application. The real heavy lifting is in the contract. And that brings us to our third critical step, your chain of title. Before a single euro is sent your way, Eurimages demands absolute, rock-solid proof that you own all the rights to the project. There can't be any gray areas, no ambiguity, and you need to pay very close attention here because this is where a lot of projects get stuck in limbo. So to get that final agreement signed, you've got to come with a whole stack of paperwork. We're talking the final co-production contract, the updated finance plan, all of it. But look right there, highlighted for you, the chain of title documents. This is the absolute, non-negotiable legal proof that you actually have the right to make and sell this film. And now we're at the most complicated part, but honestly, it's the most important for your financial future. This right here is what separates the professional producers from the amateurs. Understanding how you pay back the Eurimages loan, that's not just about accounting. It's about the long-term financial health of your entire company. Everything we're about to talk about hinges on this one single definition: producers' net receipts. Think of it like this. It's the pot of money the film actually earns from everywhere, after you've paid some very specific pre-approved bills. This pot is where the repayment money comes from. Which leads us to our fourth and probably most complex critical step, the Eurimages recoupment corridor. Look, I'm telling you now, do not just skim this part. Understanding this clause is absolutely essential. This is the core of your entire financial obligation to the fund. Okay, let's make this simple. 1. Repayment starts from the very first euro of net receipts. There's no waiting period. 2. The percentage you pay back is exactly the same as Eurimages' percentage in the film's financing. If they put in 17%, they get 17% of the net receipts back. 3, and this is the important part, you only calculate this after you've deducted the money from pre-sales and minimum guarantees that you needed to get the film greenlit in the first place. This is a really good moment to pause and actually look at your own financing structure. How does it stack up against these 3 steps? So, what can you actually deduct before you calculate those net receipts? This slide is your cheat sheet. Legitimate third-party costs like a distributor's commission or your P&A spending, you can deduct those. But, and this is a big but, internal financing, things like deferrals, equity investments, or profit shares, nope, you cannot deduct those. Getting this wrong is a huge and very costly mistake. And finally, our 5th critical step. This is an ongoing duty that, believe me, a lot of producers forget about, and they regret it. Your reporting obligations. And this isn't just about sending one report and you're done. No, this is a long-term legal duty. The rules couldn't be clearer. You have to send detailed revenue statements to Eurimages. You do it as soon as money starts coming in, or at the very least, once every 12 months. You don't wait for them to chase you down for the numbers. And you have to include copies of every statement from your distributors and sales agents. It's all about total transparency, and it is absolutely mandatory. I know we've covered a lot of dense, legalistic ground, but I want you to try and reframe this. These rules, they're not just a bunch of obstacles to jump over. They are a framework for being a top-tier professional. Mastering them doesn't just get you funding, it gives you a massive strategic advantage in the world of international film. So there you have it. You've got the playbook now. All this knowledge, it transforms the complex rules of Eurimages from some kind of barrier into a clear path to getting your film made. The question is no longer how you navigate the system. The real question is, what's your next move going to be?